All right, how's it going, y'all? So, as you may have heard, in DSM 7.2.2, Synology is discontinuing and outright removing Video Station. And this is an application that actually a lot more people were using than I originally thought. And so in this tutorial, we're going to be going over how to migrate from Video Station to PLEX. The reason I chose PLEX, there's really three solid options out there: MB, Jellyfin, and PLEX, and they all have their pros and cons. But while PLEX is proprietary software that you can pay for, it's not open source, though what we're going to be doing will be totally free. It does have by far the easiest migration path, in my opinion. Because of all the other applications, it is the one that has the most ubiquitous applications for smart TVs, phones, tablets, across the board. PLEX has clients on pretty much everything, and they all work quite well. Both MB and Jellyfin, the two other competitors I mentioned earlier, do have clients on most devices. However, a lot of the time they are segregated out and are designed by different people, so there's not really a single ubiquitous application that you can install on all your devices. Whereas PLEX, because it is a company backing it, does really have those applications on your Apple TV, your phone, your iPad, your Samsung TV. Pretty much everything has a PLEX app, and that's why we're going to be using it today. Quick interjection here in the middle of the video. If you didn't hear already, we have found a company that will make custom Hawaiian shirts. We're not making any money off of it or anything like that, but if you're interested in a custom SpaceX Hawaiian shirt and you want to pre-order before September 23rd, there's a link for that down in the description below. Just one thing to note, these have a very long lead time, so we're expecting to get the order shipped out and delivered to everybody sometime in December, so it is going to be a long lead time, but they look absolutely awesome and we're really excited to get them, and they're to celebrate hitting 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So check those out in the link description, and back to the video. And so PLEX can be a little difficult to install at first. There's a couple of key caveats you need to do to make sure you've kind of set up properly, and we're going to be going over all that in this video. We're going to be installing it directly from the package center, so this is going to be truly the easiest installation process to get a working PLEX that is going to serve you quite well. So, a couple of things that need to be done. One, you need to be on the same local network as the NAS. So, if you got a VPN set up and you know how to do that, you can use that. But for the vast majority of people, make sure you are on the same local network as the NAS. And what I want you to do is I want you to log into DSM right here. And we need to make sure we are using the local IP address and not Quick Connect. If you use Quick Connect, it's not going to work. So the easiest way to ensure that for everyone is to go into Control Panel, Network, and look at your network interfaces. And what I want you to do is I actually want you to type out this IP address in your browser up here. That way we can ensure you are not on Quick Connect at all. If you're already using an IP address or a local host name like me, you don't have to, but I'm going to be explicit and do that here. So my Synology's IP address is on 10.30.0.109. So I'm just going to go to that right now. And if you have to, go to port 5000 and go ahead and log in. And we can close that other tab. So right here we can see we are using the local IP address. And the reason that is so important is this will almost kind of work if you're on Quick Connect, but will give you a weird error. So we're going to ensure that we are using the local IP address so none of that weirdness will happen. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open up our package center and scroll down to PLEX Media Server. We're going to be using this normal installation. We do not need to be using the PLEX claim token. That's because we're on the local network, so this is going to be much easier. All right, so as this is installed, it's giving us the instructions that we're actually about to go over here. Just gonna hit OK. And we're gonna go ahead and open up File Station. And as you can see, when it installed, it created this folder called PLEX Media Server. You do not need to interact with this folder called PLEX Media Server at all. If you look right here, it says, please do not place any media files here. This is essentially your settings. So later on, if you choose to migrate PLEX Media Server from running on a NAS to a separate device, you can use these files to basically bring over all of your settings very easily. But do not really mess with this. You don't need to worry about this. You just leave it alone and it will handle it itself. We can also go into Control Panel, Shared Folder, PLEX Media Server, Edit, and hit hide in My Network Places, just so we forget about it. This is just going to make it so it doesn't show up when you're on Windows File Explorer, Mac OS Finder under Network Places. It's just going to hide it there so you don't have to look at it and can kind of forget about it. Then if you're previously using Video Station, all of your media is going to be in this folder called Video. If you put it somewhere else, follow these same steps here. So this right here may be what your video folder looks like. A folder with movies and a folder with TV. And as you can see, I just filled it with some of my own YouTube videos right here. And so this is likely what your video folder looks like. If you've stored your media files anywhere else, just follow these exact same steps for those locations. So if you put it in your S drive, follow these same steps here. And you can also do multiple ones here as well. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to close this and open up our control panel and go into shared folder. And we are going to go into every single folder that we are storing our media in. So for me, it is just in video, but once again, you could also have it on your S drive or whatever shared folders you've created. And we're going to hit edit, permissions, and switch over from local users to system internal user. And we're going to scroll down until we find PLEX media server. This is the user that the PLEX application uses to get permission. This way, we can specify what PLEX has access to. So that way, you're containing out the application, so if anything happens, it's only got access to the files that are your media files, not your Office files or anything like that. And there are two options here. You can either use read-write. Read-write is useful if you want to be able to manage your media and delete files out of PLEX. Or if you really want to make sure that PLEX never deletes any files, even if you tell it to, you can make it read-only. I would generally recommend making it read-write. Once again, you would just add those things to like the S drive and do the exact same thing if you had it on any other folders. Great. So with all that out of the way, PLEX now should be able to see this. And one other thing I want to note down, if you're somebody who has multiple volumes on your NAS, check which volume it's under. So this is volume 1. If you've got multiple volumes, just know which volume this video folder is under. The next thing we're going to go ahead and do is open up PLEX. So within applications, we just see PLEX media server and we can click on it. And it's going to take us to this screen right here. Here you can go ahead and sign in however you like to. This is one of the downsides with PLEX is it does require an external account outside of DSM. That is one thing that Video Station had that PLEX does not, is the ability to integrate authentication to your local Synology account. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign in here. And so I just created a PLEX account here. And now it gives you the option to buy a lifetime pass and all those other things. These do go on sale and they have a lifetime pass. We're not going to get into that in this. That's probably for another video. But it does allow you to do additional things and have more control. However, the base level of just being able to play files is completely free. So we're going to go ahead and set up here. Go ahead and give it a name. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and add our libraries. So this is very similar to how Video Station worked. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and select your different options. More likely than not, you've got kind of 3 options that most people are going to be using. Movies, TV shows, and other videos, home movies, whatever you want to be. We're just going to go ahead and hit add library and create a library for each of those. So we're going to go ahead and start with our first one for movies, give it a name. And this is where it gets a little complicated, and that's why I wanted you to make sure if it was volume 1, volume 2. But it's pretty easy once you know how to do it. You're just going to hit browse for media folder. And then you're going to go into volume 1. Then scroll on down until you see that video folder and movies, in this case for me. And hit add library. We're going to do that again for our TV shows. So that is how you select your media folders. One nice thing you can do is, especially if you're kind of migrating into this, you can actually have Video Station and PLEX running at the same time, looking at the same media by doing this. So just like that, we can pop in here and we can see our movies and our TV shows. One thing I did do is the way PLEX wants to manage the media, and I'll go ahead and pull that up, is PLEX really is expecting this exact setup. So go ahead, I'll leave a link down in the description below to this, and it'll walk through exactly how you're supposed to name all of your stuff. For me, this was not working for a second because PLEX was expecting a folder named show name, not just video files loosely in there. So you do need to make sure you're following that, otherwise it might not find it. And just like that, we've got our pieces here. We can go ahead and open up one of these files. And just like that, we can see our media files in here and play them much like Video Station. One thing to know is if you can what's called direct play the file, it is going to work a lot better than if you have to transcode it. A lot of Synologies do not have integrated GPUs, iGPUs, which is Intel QuickSync, and so they're not going to be able to transcode a ton of streams. If you're mostly working in 1080p, it's not too big of a deal, but in general, if your media is able to be directly played without any kind of conversion, even very underpowered Synologies will be able to do that. And if you need to transcode on the fly 4K files, there are a few Synologies that can do that. Actually, one of the better ones in this current generation is the DS 423 Plus because it has a Intel QuickSync GPU in there, but that does require the PLEX pass for hardware transcoding. So this is the basics of PLEX. Everything is kind of tied to your account. There are ways not to link an account, but we're going to keep it a lot simpler and just use this to give the most seamless experience for people who don't want to spend a ton of time with this. Another really useful thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and change a couple library settings. You want to be able to scan your library automatically. Basically, anytime there's new media added, you may as well get it scanned. And also run a partial scan. Then I also like to enable a periodic scan. You can do every 2 hours. It depends on how much performance this costs you. And then there are some other pieces in here, and you can just kind of go ahead and choose these as required. There are a ton of settings, as you might be able to see over here, but this is the basics right here. Later on, if you need to add more libraries, that is down here. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can do. There's tons of tutorials out there. PLEX is a very ubiquitous app that you can do a bunch of stuff with. So that is pretty much the basics. One last thing I do want to show is under General, you will see that there's an update available and you have to install it manually. PLEX only pushes updates to Synologies every once in a while because they've got to go through a whole different process when they're updating Synologies than they do with regular Linux boxes because it's in the package center. There are instructions online on how to do that. For most people, you should be okay running it just through the DSM updates. But if you do ever hear about a big CVE, do look up how to do it, though PLEX has not had one in a while. And if they do, they should really push it through the Synology update process very quickly. There's a bunch more options you can do here. You can share out libraries with additional people, and so that's where you can have multiple people being able to access libraries, just like you did previously. And there's a bunch more stuff here, but overall this should be the basics for getting you set up and running with PLEX. And the nice thing is you can do this on DSM 7.1 without updating or removing out Video Station, so you kind of have a way to slowly on-ramp rather than just having to jump headfirst on in and completely change your workflows. All right, so that should be it for this tutorial. These are the basics for how to get PLEX installed and your media linked on a Synology NAS. If you have any other questions, put those down in the comments below. And if you want to hire me, there's a link for that down in the description below. All right, have a good one. Bye.